So we spent quite a bit of time opening up this show with, as you can imagine, the Jake Retzlaff news and what's next for BYU, what's next for him. Dave McCann, this guy does a lot. That's why we have him on. BYU TV columnist for the Deseret News and co-host for the Y Guys podcast and columnist as well. He joins us, and we've had Dave on before. Dave, good afternoon. How you doing, sir?
It's good. I want to clarify a couple things. I'm okay on the cauliflower issue, although my wife is pro cauliflower, so I'm with you in the studio there. And the second thing is, why is there a Vanderbilt hat over your right shoulder?
We have
I got a letter of acceptance there. No, I did not.
We have a lot of different ones that we had a sponsor that sent us a bunch, and then we had viewers who sent us a bunch. So it just started. We had like 4 of them. Remember, we had like 4 helmets in the studio, and then people like, well, you need a Houston helmet. And look, we've got BYU fans, Dave.
You know how that is.
I mean, look, they almost decked out the studio in blue and white. Yeah, they sent us several different helmets.
We have Vanderbilt because Diego Pavia said they're going to run the world this year in college football. They're not losing a game.
Well, I was watching this last segment and I was staring at your shoulder and I'm like, I think that's a Vanderbilt helmet, and I couldn't figure out why it is so perfectly placed in the middle of your show.
We rotate them around.
It's an algorithm. It's a helmet algorithm. What's going on, and what is the mood today? There's been some clarity now, and I know we'll get into the quarterbacks that are not going to try to fight to be QB1, but what's the mood right now in Provo?
You know, this might sound strange, but under the circumstances, this is really a good day for both Jake and BYU. It's been sitting around for a couple of months for BYU, for Jake a little longer. We get some closure with the case being thrown out. He's got some honor code issues and suspensions that if he stays, he'll have to face for his behavior that he agreed to live. So we all get that. But it gives him an opportunity now to jump someplace else relatively clean, you know, without taking that case with him. So that's good for him. I've been in contact with him. This is a good day for him in a set of not great circumstances. And for Kalani and the Cougars, you know, the Big 12 meetings are coming up, and now they don't have to take this story down there for the most part. The story can be who's going to be your quarterback and move forward with the candidates there. But as you can imagine, this is sitting over the team and their individual workouts and player-led practices as to whether or not Jake's even going to be there, if he even should be there. And now there's some closure. So I think Kalani will take a deep breath and go, I just want to know what I got, as opposed to it might be this, it might be that, it might be 3 games, it might be 7 games. And now everyone just knows. And for the last day of June, it's better than finding out on the first day of July, I think is the attitude around here.
I've seen reports that expect him to go to someplace significant. Dave, does he really know about where he's going now, even though it hasn't been released yet?
He told me that he said he's going to be fine and that his agent's working some places. He didn't give me names, but we've heard, Northwestern, maybe even Notre Dame is out there on social media. I don't know what their quarterback situation's like. He wants to play right now, and he couldn't call it a redshirt year, right? And go somewhere and spend time to learn the offense for one last blast because he's got 1 year of eligibility remaining. With the 7-game suspension here, he just said it's too many games to salvage a season, so he's got to go somewhere if he wants to have a senior year. A lot of teams have their quarterbacks, right, because they're heading to camp here in a few weeks. But there are a few out there, and so a couple of those names where you're like, oh, well, that would be great for him. I hope he has a great landing spot and an opportunity to do what he wants to do.
Forgive my ignorance, but does he need a waiver now? Or I know the expectation, I mean, he's graduated, right? But is that just all he needed and boom, he's free and clear and he can go whenever, wherever? You know,
if you Google what the rule is, it comes up and says if you've graduated, you have the freedom to go whenever you want into the portal. Yeah. And I believe that's the case. There's been some activity on social media saying, well, he'll still need a waiver and all of this.
That's what we got. Yeah.
If he does, BYU will cooperate and help him find a spot. as they've done many times before with kids that may have run into trouble here. But Kalani is so good about helping them land somewhere that's a better fit for them. And so, man, I've always told my kids, when you have your degree, you have freedoms. And even in college football, if you have your degree, there are different rules to reward you. And this might apply to Jake and give him a chance to have one more run somewhere.
So there are 3 quarterbacks in the QB room, and we've looked at and talked about all of them. What are your thoughts about how that might play out?
They got some talented kids. Jake may not be the best quarterback. In fact, I've been told he's not the best quarterback in the quarterback room skill-wise. He's just the only one that went 11-2 last year. and you just can't attach that to a kid who didn't go 11-2 last year. And he was going to be the starter. So, it's a blow no matter what, no matter how you dress it up. But with him gone, then you look at Trayson Bourget from Western Michigan, who has some starts there. McKay Hillstead, who you've been talking about, has some starts at Utah State. And then Bear Bachmeier, the only college experience he has is he went through spring drills at Stanford before they fired their coach, and he came up here in May. I've been told by guys who are working with them that Bachmeier's the real deal, might be the best quarterback in the room, bar none, as far as pocket presence, footing, throwing, reading. He just doesn't have any experience. And we saw in the Big 12 last year when teams threw out freshmen, it just didn't go very well. And so I think Kalani would be hesitant unless he's heads and shoulders above the other two. So I think in theory it's a Bourget, Hillstead. Hillstead's smaller and faster. Bourget's bigger and built to take a few more hits. They can both throw. To BYU's advantage, they both were on the team last year and ran practices every day. So they've each had plenty of time in the playbook. But they just didn't expect to be on the last day of June, knowing that July is now a turbo month. And then August, and they have 3 months. I got an article coming out tonight in the Deseret News called "The 3 Months to Boulder," like a movie title. They've got literally 3 months to get ready for the Big 12 opener at the end of September in Boulder. And from some of the quarterbacks I've talked to that played, they think 3 months is enough time when you're surrounded by a pretty good team to be ready to run the offense. We'll see. It's just not a scenario that Kalani dreamed that he was going to face during spring drills.
That's got to be the thing that makes them nervous and confident equally, is that, okay, nervous because you got to do this now and you didn't expect to, but confident in that the team that they built around Jake Retzlaff was really good. They were 11-2 last year. They've added to that. They haven't taken huge. I mean, I know there's guys like Tyler Batty and guys you can't really just, snap your fingers and get that kind of a motor, but they didn't have any like massive losses. It looked like they were going to be able to kind of jump ahead. Now they're kind of stuck wondering, aren't they? At least for a little bit.
It's a different BYU program now. Back in the glory years of the quarterback, we'll call it, Ty Detmer or Robbie Bosco or Steve Young. By the way, Steve Young's worst loss is still against Baylor, and he talks about it frequently. But those were the days when the quarterback had to throw for 405 touchdowns because the defense was going to give up 30 points. And now, especially last year and again this year, Kalani has built this team that the quarterback just needs to go not lose the game, manage the game. And, they had the number one defense in the Big 12 last year. They had 21 interceptions, which is an insane number. They had arguably the best kicker in the Big 12, maybe the country. He made his last 16 field goals. They've got a punt returner who's getting, All-American props coming in. Receivers are back. LJ Martin's back healthy at running back. So they're built to have Jake come in and just manage the offense and maybe even be better than they were last year. So now a new guy has to come in, and if he can just do that, in years past, the quarterback had to go win the game. And this year, as we saw even last year, the quarterback really has to just not lose the game. And now BYU got plenty of breaks last year. We all get that, and they stayed healthy, and that can turn quickly. But when those things align and everyone just does their thing, I mean, the two toughest games that Retzlaff had last year was the Kansas game that they lost here, and at Arizona State, where he may have had his worst half of the season. And then in that bowl game, he threw a couple of picks, maybe had his worst game of the year in its entirety, and they won 36-14 against the nationally ranked Colorado team with some superstars. So that core is back. The quarterback's going to be different. But as you mentioned, this is a different BYU team now that's not built around the quarterback being the savior.
So despite this, they don't lose momentum, because coming off 11-2 and hammering Colorado, and it seemed like Paul mentioned, and had a lot coming back, and they added a lot. Does this in any way deflate the tire at all?
I think it's been deflating.
Okay.
This is the issue hanging over it has been what's the deflating thing. I talked to Chase Roberts, I talked to Keanu Tanavasa, their Utah transfer that's going to anchor that defensive line. And it's a pretty tight-knit bunch. The wild card here was Jake and his off-the-field issue and how he handled it with the team, how he didn't handle it with the team. That became the story of the offseason, and now that story is gone. And so I think it's now a relief. And a lot of folks around here don't believe is it going to cost them 2 or 3 wins over the course of the season? Maybe, because experience seems to be that valuable. But where does that put them? 8-4? Is that still a good year? 9-3? The rest of this team's built to do what they did last year. The schedule is a little more friendly than it was a year ago. I think they're sky high with optimism. Where it's going to hurt them, I believe, is when the AP poll comes out. Mm-hmm. I think they finished 13th with Jake back. They're probably going to be right around 15, maybe 16. And now they probably won't even be in it. And that just makes a long climb for everyone outside the top 25 to make it up inside the top 12. And so that's probably the biggest difference, Retzlaff here versus Retzlaff being gone, that'll affect the team, which could affect them all year long as they try to climb up and get to the college football playoff. They were close last year, and they figured they would get back there this year. And now now there's a question mark there, which I think you bring up, which is true. It's like, what does it do to their momentum? All but one guy who isn't part of this issue. Those guys are a pretty tight-knit bunch, and they're hungry, and they know how close they were, and they're really good. And so again, if Jake's replacement can manage or even exceed expectation a little bit, they're going to be tough to beat.
What would you say is the transfer that's not a quarterback on the offense that's most likely to take the pressure off of whoever it is?
They didn't add a whole lot on the offense as far as skill guys. But Andrew Gentry, the transfer from Michigan on the offensive line, I think at left tackle, he's 6'7", 315. He's a great piece. They've been able to now put left tackles in the NFL the last 3 or 4 drafts, and if not drafted, or at least in with chance to make teams. And so now that's an attractive spot, that left tackle spot. And Gentry had a couple years at Michigan. Chose Harbaugh over Sataki a few years ago. Harbaugh leaves. He went another year there and wanted to come home. And Sataki was still here, and they had a relationship. And I think on that offensive line, talking about what could help that new quarterback, guys like Gentry will be that kind of a guy. Defensively, they didn't add a lot of guys either, right? Just more depth. Tanavasa coming down from Utah, that's huge. Jay Hill thinks he might be one of the better defensive linemen in the country when it's all said and done this season. They lost the 4 guys up front last year, so that was a priority. They have depth, and a lot of guys played last year, but you need some superstars, and they believe Tanavasa, who will be there in Texas at the football meetings, you'll have a chance to visit with him. he's huge, and he's such an awesome kid. You can't help but pull for those kinds of guys, and he's going to be probably is their biggest addition team wide from this last season. That'll help them coming up here in a few weeks, few months.
Last thing, Dave, and appreciate your time and a lot of great insight, no question, and knowledge is that BYU has probably and Arizona State had their run, but it seems like BYU has benefited the most. Would you agree, from those who joined the Big 12 and this 8 of the 16 teams that are new?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you see it in the depth, which they didn't have the first year, and they lost the last 5 games. They got run down, hurt, banged up, and mowed over. Jay Hill's been a huge addition for them, which has helped to rebuild their defense. And depth's always a thing. You know, they were independent for 12 years, but they always had the goal of being in a Power 4 conference. So they tried to build that way. But in a recruiting battle between I can go to the Rose Bowl or I can go to the Independence Bowl, the Rose Bowl would win. And they lost a lot of guys. They're in a recruiting haul around here, the likes they've never seen before. The 5-star kid Ryder Lyons committing, a 4-star tight end Brock Harris picking BYU, McKay Matz, another 4-star, and they're picking BYU over Oregon in all 3 of those cases, or Michigan, or Georgia, or Texas, and especially over Utah, which is the real battle here in the Beehive State for recruits. And so Kalani is right in the middle of maybe his best recruiting haul for 2026 in program history. And it comes with Retzlaff right in the middle of it, heading to the transfer portal and moving out after an 11-2 season. So things are actually pretty good here, and building for the future. It's just this Retzlaff thing has been a pain in the rear for both. And now that pain's subsiding and the true pains can come on opening day. One thing that these quarterbacks have, I think, an advantage of, Portland State's the first game on August 30th. Now, initially it was like, why would you play an FCS team? Waste a Saturday type thing. But now that seems like a perfect placement.
Yep, no
then
question.
Stanford comes in, and they're not the Stanford they used to be. That's a little tougher game for the new guy. Then they have a bye. We thought a 3rd-week bye is like, how does that help? But now it's perfect. Then they go to East Carolina, first road trip for whoever the new kid is, and then to Colorado. So all of a sudden, the early part of the season really kind of shapes up for a kid who's gonna cut his teeth on the field.
Do you think David Retzlaff will make a decision by the end of the week on where he's going? You do? Yeah.
I think it's going to be super quick, because where he's going, that program wants to know who their quarterback's going to be. And now that today is done, I think he needed that case to be thrown out just so that doesn't go with him. And I would think it'd be pretty quick. He said he wasn't sure of the timeline, but I think things have picked up the pace after this morning's when the judge signed off and threw the thing out. A lot of people scratching their head around here, but the honor code's a real thing at BYU. And here's a starting quarterback coming off an 11-2 season with a chance to maybe go to the playoff and all those visions of grandeur. But there's an honor code here, and if you don't live it or try to live it, it's a pretty forgiving place if you work through your issues. But if you keep them to yourself and let them come out on SportsCenter, it just makes it a much harder thing. And I think Jake has found that out.
What a great segment, Dave. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
You got it, guys. See you soon.
Dave McCann with us. Perfect. Not sure we could have had anybody better to kind of summarize a lot of from today, leading up to today, the future, and even the conversations that he's had with others in the program, including with Jake Retzlaff, who now tries to find a new home.